You don't seduce when you chase. You seduce when you control your space. Understand this once and for all. Women are not seduced by the message you send, by the line you try to drop, or by the good intentions you insist on showing. They are seduced by something that happens before any word: the silent reading of your energy, your posture, the way you occupy the environment, how you position yourself socially, how you react to silence and to your own insecurity. Before you open your mouth, she's already felt whether you are a man who is worth it or just one more who is begging to be chosen. You destroy your presence exactly at the moment you try too hard to show it. When you force conversation, when you chase a reply, when you ask if she got upset, when you show interest too quickly, you are not showing maturity. You are transmitting urgency. It is not affection, it is haste. It is not attention, it is disguised desperation. And the female instinct, which has been calibrated to quickly detect which men have social and emotional value, reads this as a sign of low self-importance. He needs me to feel like someone. This is where your psychological conflict comes in. You are afraid of being rejected, so you try to compensate by showing yourself available, present, always ready, always accessible, always reacting. At the same time, you are addicted to female validation, to the look, the reply, the like, the slightest sign of interest. This combination is deadly. Fear of losing a plus addiction to approval. Anxious behavior. And anxious behavior kills magnetism. Magnetism does not come from the one who begs for connection. It comes from the one who sustains his own presence even when it seems like nothing is happening. Carl Jung called the shadow that which you hide from yourself. Your fears, your insecurities, your childish need to be approved. You spend your life trying to hide this. But ironically, it is exactly what shows up in front of her. The shadow leaks out in the begging eyes, in the excessive questions, in the long explanations, in the need to prove that you are different. You don't say, "I need you to like me," but your body does. Your energy does. Your behavior screams it. And she doesn't need to be a psychologist to feel it. Today, there are already studies showing that women perceive calm, focused, and socially selective men as more attractive than those who show immediate and exaggerated interest. In simple language, the man who is at peace with himself, who observes, who reads the environment, who doesn't rush to fill silence, is read as someone of greater value. The man who rushes forward, offers himself, explains himself, justifies himself, shrinks with fear of losing, is read as someone who still hasn't chosen himself. And if you don't choose yourself, she doesn't feel why she should choose you. The point is not you approaching a woman. The point was never that. The problem is how you approach. Needy, predictable, too transparent in your intentions, without mystery, without center, without presence. You enter the interaction asking for something, not offering reality. You enter wanting to be chosen, not bringing an internal world that is already defined. Attraction is not born from someone who begs for space. It is born from someone who already occupies his own space and allows her to want to enter. Throughout this video, I'm going to show you the psychological, biological, and behavioral mechanism that makes a woman begin to feel attracted to you even before you say a single sentence. I'm going to show you why your body language speaks louder than your conversation, why your silent energy weighs more than any approach technique, and why, while you are chasing, the man who controls his own space simply waits. And that is exactly why she goes to him. Here you are not going to learn to beg for attention. Here you're going to learn to become the man who does not need to hit on a woman to be desired. The trap of neediness. The mistake that switches off female desire. The first mistake is born before the conversation, before the approach, before the attempt. It begins in your internal state. Every man who enters an interaction trying to be accepted is, without realizing it, communicating low self-importance. You might even think you're being polite, friendly, attentive. But the energy that reaches the other side is another. It is the energy of someone who offers himself, who seeks approval, who tries to earn points one by one, as if he were in front of an examining board waiting for a grade. Every anxious question, every quick gesture, every attempt to seem interesting reveals an uncomfortable truth. You don't see yourself as a prize, you see yourself as a candidate. And candidates don't seduce, they only try to be chosen. When a woman notices this, something changes deeply inside her. Not because she is arrogant, but because the female instinct has been shaped to detect men who already have value before seeking any validation. According to evolutionary psychology, especially in the studies of David Buss, the first screening is not charm, it is not looks, it is not conversation, it is emotional stability. A man who remains centered, serene, and comfortable with himself activates a sense of safety that cannot be faked. But the man who shows urgency, haste, anxiety, or exaggerated enthusiasm triggers an old alarm. This is the kind of man who depends on external approval to function. And this kind of man does not sustain his own world. He only revolves around hers. The truth that few tell is that women do not desire effort. They desire direction. They do not desire demonstration. They desire filter. The man who tries to earn points is predictable. The man who moves with his own intention is magnetic. She does not want a flattering competitor. She wants someone whose life is already bigger than her presence. That is why the most common expectation collapses. You believe that showing interest quickly brings her closer, but in reality, it is what pushes you away. Female desire is not born from what you offer, it is born from what you represent. Recent studies from Florida State University show that women rate socially indifferent yet confident men as more attractive than men who try to show themselves as available from the very first moment. What looks like coldness actually activates curiosity. What looks like indifference actually activates the perception of value. The man who does not try to win her over is sending a very simple but extremely powerful message. I am not starved for connections, and that changes everything. There is a practical rule that many ignore, but that separates magnetic men from anxious men. The rule of dominant presence. Before speaking, observe. Before showing interest, establish your own comfort. Before trying to show desire, let your body language make the first read. Slow movements suggest mastery. Well-sustained silences create authority. A relaxed yet expansive posture communicates that you are present in the environment, not lost inside your own head. That is what draws the female gaze before any word. When you follow this rule, something invisible happens. The dynamic inverts. You stop chasing and start being noticed. You stop transmitting neediness and start transmitting center. And female desire always gravitates towards the center, never towards urgency, the biological factor. She reads in you without realizing it. There is something you transmit without speaking, without noticing, without meaning to. It is a micro behavior, almost invisible, but devastating to your presence. It is when your eyes look for hers too quickly, when your smile appears before its time, when your posture shrinks a millimeter as soon as you feel that she evaluated you. These signs seem small, but her brain registers them all. For the female instinct, these details say more than any well-constructed sentence. They reveal social submission. They reveal that you can be influenced, molded, guided. They reveal that you are more concerned with her reaction than with your own truth. And this is where attraction collapses, not because you did something wrong, but because your body confessed an insecurity your mouth would never admit. A big part of this comes from a silent addiction, the addiction to male dopamine. When you seek female validation, your brain operates in short reward cycles. Each look from her, each like, each reply triggers a chemical spike that puts you in urgency mode. An urgency for a man translates into reactivity. You respond too fast, talk too much, try too hard to please. Dopamine creates dependence, and dependence destroys your coldness. Deep down, It's not that you are interested in her. You're interested in the feeling she gives you. And every woman can tell when she is not being desired for who she is, but used as an emotional source by a man who doesn't control his own nervous system. The man who truly attracts is the one who rules his own rhythm. He does not speed up because the environment is sped up. He does not mold himself to the social climate. He creates his own climate. Mystery does not come from distance. It comes from timing. Control does not come from disdain. It comes from rhythm. It is the man who sets the emotional tempo of the interaction, not the one who reacts to her tempo. When he speaks in his own time. When he looks with intention. When he moves like someone who already knows who he is. And this psychological stability creates a silent impact. She feels like getting closer, not because he ignores her, but because he does not contort himself to please. Research from Harvard University shows that women interpret slow movements and long pauses in speech as indicators of higher cognitive status. This has nothing to do with arrogance. It has to do with presence. A man who speaks too fast seems anxious. A man who fills every silence seems insecure. A man who breathes, observes, and only then responds transmits mastery. It is the body saying what words will never reach. There is a simple but brutally effective method to reorganize this dynamic. The internal rhythm technique. Speak 15% slower than the environment around you. This decouples your mind from the need to please and puts you into a state of conscious observation. Avoid confirming everything with yes or uh-huh. When you cut these small reflexes, you break the submissive posture that many men adopt without noticing. And above all, learn to use strategic micro-silences. Silences that are not empty of words, but full of presence. It is in these gaps that value is read. It is in these spaces that the woman realizes that you are not there to be approved. You are there because you chose to be. And that difference changes everything. The invisible law of silent attraction. She feels when you have options. Most men sabotage themselves in the first second before they even notice. When they find a woman they consider above average, they automatically enter a state of scarcity. They change their behavior, change their tone of voice, change their posture, change their energy. They act as if that woman were a rare, almost unique opportunity. And when a man behaves as if he were facing the last chance of his life, the woman feels it. Not because she is arrogant, but because the female instinct always evaluates social positioning before personality. Scarcity energy destroys magnetism. Nothing turns off female desire more than a man who seems to depend on that interaction to feel validated. Social psychology calls this the relative value mechanism. The concept is simple and relentless. When something is scarce, its value rises. When you are scarce, your value rises. But when you act as if the woman were scarce and you were abundant in insecurity, it is you who loses value. Robert Cialdini has already pointed out that the perception of scarcity automatically changes the level of interest. Women instinctively have been calibrated to detect men who already have social and female options, not because they seek competition, but because a man desired by other women automatically signals quality. It is an evolutionary filter. You do not control this. And each of your gestures confirms or destroys the signal. When you do not need the interaction, something extraordinary happens. Your energy changes. Your movements slow down. Your breathing deepens. Your attention expands to the environment rather than narrowing onto her validation. You're not trying to impress. You are simply existing in your own axis. And this is the real turning point. The man who has his own direction creates a social gravitational field. The woman feels it before she understands it. She senses it before she reasons about it. Female desire is not born from declared intention. It is born from silent impact. You seduce without speaking when you show that your life is bigger than that moment. Studies published in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior show that women interpret men who are seemingly uninterested but socially connected is more sexually desirable. This does not mean acting with contempt. It means that the man who already moves well socially, who talks to others, who connects with the environment, who is not orbiting a single person, transmits value naturally. She reads social connection as a sign of strength. She reads naturalness as confidence. She reads independence as power. There's a direct method to activate this immediately. Look at the external focus strategy. 70% of your attention should be on the environment, not on the woman. Observe people, movements, conversations, the social atmosphere. Interact with other people before interacting with her. Make your body tell the world that you are not there, begging for an opportunity, but living your own narrative. This is not acting, it is internal repositioning. When your attention stops revolving around her, your energy stops begging for recognition. You stop being the man who tries to enter her world and become the man who silently invites her to enter yours. That is the point where seduction begins. That is the point where she realizes that you don't need her to feel whole. And that is exactly why she comes closer. The code of effortless attraction. In the end, there's a truth that few men accept. Seducing without hitting on a woman is not a social skill. It is an internal construction. It is not about lines, techniques, or conversation tactics. It is about the kind of presence you become when you stop performing, stop begging, and stop seeking validation. Seducing effortlessly is an effect, not an act. It is the direct consequence of a man who masters his own behavior, his own body, his own silence. A woman feels this even before you open your mouth because her body reacts to what yours transmits. Attraction is not opinion. Attraction is biology. And biology reads your axis, not your speech. Robert Greene states that power is influencing without revealing intention. And this applies perfectly to seduction. The average man tries to show that he is interesting. The high V value man allows that to be perceived. The average man tries to demonstrate interest. The high value man demonstrates direction. He does not push the interaction. He does not beg for attention. He does not need to prove he deserves anything. He exists in a complete and silent way, and his presence speaks for itself. True seduction is born from this point: silent presence, inner direction, control of energy, and social selectivity. It is the sum of these elements that creates the field of inevitable attraction. The most powerful part is understanding that a woman senses value before hearing your voice. She perceives the way you move, how you look, how you react to the world around you. She feels whether you are guided by your own axis or by the desire to please. She perceives whether you are centered or trying to fit in. And what defines all of this is your level of self-mastery. Seducing effortlessly is impossible for a man who does not govern his own anxiety, who does not understand his own body, who does not know his own energy. But when you master your rhythm, your silence, and your focus, something changes profoundly. You stop being a request for approval and become a presence that imposes respect. That is why, when you master silence, you also master female desire. Silence is not the absence of speech, it is condensed presence. It is the demonstration that you have an internal world. It is proof that you don't need to chase anything to prove who you are. And female desire responds strongly to this posture, because desire never chases noise. Desire chases magnetism, and magnetism is always silent. If you want to go beyond what has been said here and truly enter the strategic level of seduction, there is a path. I'm not talking about tricks or copied formulas or canned lines that promise miracles. I'm talking about a real, deep, invisible mechanism that few men know and even few are master. A method that reveals why some women feel attracted before the first exchange of words. A method that shows how desire is born in the subconscious reading of value in the play between rhythm, silence, energy, and posture. It is the code of seduction. Inside it, you will understand the evolutionary, psychological, and neurobiological mechanisms that make attraction truly work. And when you understand these mechanisms, you stop guessing. You start mastering. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Here's the final insight that few men know. Indifference is not ignoring. Indifference is directing your energy toward what deserves to be fed. When you take the woman out of the center of your attention and place your axis there instead, something changes instantly. Your mind stops fragmenting, your body stops reacting, your energy stops begging, the masculine becomes solid. And when the masculine becomes solid, the feminine draws near. This tactic alone reorganizes your entire body language, your entire inner vibration, your entire silent communication. It makes you seem calmer, more selective, more present. And presence is the oldest and most powerful form of seduction there.